Alright guys, welcome back to Valorant News. Big upset at Masters London. G2 Esports again coming in as the #1 seed from the Americas, expected to maybe make this finally their tournament win on the international stage. Bomb out in dramatic fashion last night. Valyn, among others, give their response to the situation. He was not a happy man, of course, after losing in the manner that they did, but after all the talk, after all the drama on what happened when they got placed against XLG in the bracket play itself, to bomb out in the fashion they did to the teams they've eventually lost to, has certainly turned heads. Did they bottle it? Is there something else going on here? What for the future? Very much enjoyed your thoughts in the comments. Hit the like button if you enjoy. But let's talk about what's been happening in London. Bit of a shorter video today because there's not many talking points outside of what happened on the server yesterday and what's potentially going to happen on the server again today. But Edward Gaming, of course, they're sitting pretty in the winners bracket. We'll see how they get on in what's going to be a very interesting series over these next few hours. But nobody says, look, if your opponent doesn't respect us, we will, if our opponent doesn't respect us, we will fight back during the game. You know, we are happy to talk a little bit of trash and give it back to those other guys. Let's show that our region and our nation has good morals, but, you know, we should still respect the opponent as well. So he's given a few comments on, well, what maybe some of the fans were saying to some of their opponents and the Chinese region's opponents over some of these recent days. Liv versus Team Heretics, very, very interesting series. Of course, this was an elimination game down in the losers bracket, and, you know, pretty disgusting shot actually that was hit here that FNS was pretty surprised by. We'll see how it all played out. Rians picks up blows with the Sova ult, and then we see Sato pick up one before getting absolutely picked off Woot through the smoke by the Neon. So yeah, pretty nice shot, and in the end Lev go on to take this round, and Team Heretics find themselves in an increasingly difficult position where Lev eventually knocked Heretics out of the tournament. So Keiko is gone, and I think there is a question in hindsight looking at that NRG run. You know, NRG, they had a 2-0 win against XLG. They then bowed out to teams that have gone on to look pretty good in the bracket play. So, you know, maybe that NRG team, although they did underperform, maybe it wasn't maybe as bad as it looked. But Benji Fishy already gone as well. So the only British player, obviously part British in a way, represents multiple different flags, has lots of different heritage, is Naman coming out of XLG. So yeah, pretty remarkable that Benji Fishy eliminated, Keiko eliminated, and XLG play Edward Gaming today. But Leviathan, they get the dub, they get the 2-1 win, and it goes to the Ascent where they won it 13-6, as we just saw there. The Lotus was a Heretics win 13-11. Map 1 though was absolutely dominant, and I think Lev definitely the deserving team to advance in the tournament right now. Woot had a surprisingly poor map 1, and frankly a surprisingly poor series overall, but Sato, Neon, and the guys on Lev, they keep on delivering. So they are definitely a force to be reckoned with in this tournament, there is no doubt about that. But a force that's already been eliminated, of course, is G2. Now GX, if of course featuring Cloud, Giant X, they, well, are going to be rid of him soon. Not rid of him, but he's getting bought out, we understand, right? So Fnatic wanted to go and get this guy, and Cloud's been doing a few tweets. He says, ah, damn, I thought Heretics would go crazy. They're out way earlier than I thought, but obviously everyone in the replies was like, you know, elephant in the room, right? Like, people think you're going to Fnatic, so there were plenty of comments in his replies being like, are you going to talk about this, or is that just what it is? So, yeah, Cloud even kind of hints that, yeah, there maybe are some other things going on right at this moment, but let's talk about G2. Because when they lost to XLG, that was a huge drama, right, from multiple angles, because the way that they'd picked them and all of this. And look, I know that Valyn comes out and says, oh, well, the boys were unwell, we have the flu and all this, but, you know, this is only a couple of days ago when they did the seeding, and it's just, this is one of the images that will live on in infamy throughout Valorant history, right? Like, I love this picture just because of how happy, like, everyone is. Obviously, Jorgamo's sitting down here, Josh RT, even the face that he did when he was picking XLG was like, oh, he was trying to pretend it was a difficult decision, but like obviously he knew who they were going to pick. Baby Bay's pretty happy about it. Valyn obviously was like clapping, and they were, you know, they were just celebrating as if they'd already won the tournament, right? And like obviously Trent and Lee found it absolutely hilarious, the team that they were going to have to play, and it's just, it couldn't be written any better, right? Like when this happens, as a neutral fan, obviously if I'm a G2 fan, I'm frustrated, right? And G2 didn't have to put this out there publicly publicly. They did not have to do the tweet that revealed this to the world. They could have done this tweet after they beat XLG, right? They could have put it out there. Obviously, they lost, so it never to seen the light of day. But you know what I'm saying? If they beat XLG, then you put this out there, maybe. But instead, XLG, they knew that their rivals, really didn't respect them, I think. I think that's kind of what this comes down to. Not that, obviously, there's some level of respect, and they know that XLG are going to be solid. But when you're this happy about what you feel like is a free win, XLG, of course, they're gonna see that and they're gonna know, all right, we have to beat these guys at all costs. And that's, of course, exactly what they went on to do. They lost that series. Okay, it is what it is, but you can still fight back in the losers bracket. We know that G2 have been so dominant on the domestic stage for a very long time, but internationals in multiple ways have always managed to slip through their grasp. And, well, Baby Bay was asking the question to FNS, like, is this what it feels like to lose to Billy Billy Gaming? And he was like, yeah, this is exactly what it's like. So, good luck for the rest of the tournament, broski. And then they play FUT Esports last night. A FUT Esports team that, of course, they dropped down to the losers bracket already. Baby Bay picked up an ace, which I thought was pretty fantastic for him to actually set a new record as the oldest player to achieve that. Shazam, Scream, Device, Shion, among others, are, making waves on this list. But Baby Bay significantly ahead of all of them. But when it mattered on the deciding map, as it turned out to be for G2, because FUT Esports went up 1-0, they then played a very tight and competitive Lotus here, but a 2 versus 2, Sop again finds himself in a critical decision. Valyn comes through the Omen smoke. Sop picks up the last couple of kills. That completes the ace. And FUT Esports advance in the tournament, and G2 go down again on the international stage. So it's just amazing how it's gone from a couple of days ago to where they are today, again out of this big international tournament. And again, it wasn't especially close, right? The Ascent, they got bodied 13-6. Yeah, they picked their map on the Lotus, but in the end, the overtime, it wasn't enough. It was 15-13, and they go down. Sop and the boys, Baby Bay, Trent, they were all out of there. So, yeah, horrible for G2, because they come in as the number 1 seed. And of course, not the only team. Heretics as well. They managed to, to bomb out and to lose in the similar fashion as the number 1 seed coming out of EMEA. And as Valyn says, such a terrible feeling. One by one, all the boys get flu, and we can't show what we're capable of. Feels like a go next, see you in Paris for the World Cup. Now, this, of course, has turned a lot of heads. People are talking about this an awful lot, because it's one of those. Now, what I do respect here from Valyn is that he's not said no excuses, but he's just said, look, we all got flu, so we didn't play as well as we could have done. And to be fair, he's probably right. Like, is he going to be lying about them getting flu? Unlikely. It's one of those things that you're never going to say it before the series has started. You're never going to say, oh, well, we've got the flu, lads, so we'll see how it goes. Because also that puts you in a bad headspace. Like, you've already internally made an excuse before you've even played, which is never where you want to be. Having lost, then you talk about it. And yeah, we expected more out of G2. Did we expect them to play some better Valorant? Absolutely. If they were absolutely 100% well, I mean, clearly a couple of days ago they looked pretty fine, but, obviously they've been going down with something over the last couple of days, and that is unfortunate, and that will hold them back to a certain extent. The question is always, will it hold them back enough? Even if they didn't get the flu, would they still be able to do anything internationally? Because arguably, they've shown many times now that they turn up to these international tournaments and basically do nothing, regardless of the circumstances. And, Valyn says, look, the boys got flu, we couldn't show what we're capable of, it is what it is, we're going to go next. But of course, in the replies here, he was, they were getting kind of cooked. Now, it's not, I don't think the replies here were anything that insane, right? Like, obviously it's unfortunate about the flu timing and all of this, but, like, the laughing and the jumping up and down during the jaw show, obviously people are going to cook them. Time to have some accountability and stop with the excuses. Do you ever take accountability, or is it just coping excuses and all this type of stuff, right? So, I understand people are going to say, well, didn't look sick a couple of days ago, buddy, and I see that, right? So I thought a lot of the replies here were, as much as, excuses, instead of admitting the loss, you're given excuses and all this stuff. So people are going to cook them, because a lot of the fans are frustrated about the way that these guys keep delivering on the international stage. And, excuse rater, flu 5 out of 10, not original enough, etc., wishing a speedy recovery. So, look, there are some tweets that are basically, I don't think these tweets are anything that outrageous. Okay, maybe he's getting some crazy DMs, but most of these replies are saying, look, you've made an excuse, you're not taking accountability, you guys are just not good enough, like, admit it, basically. And look, whether you think that's fair or not, it's at least a reasonable reaction to what's happened over the last few days. So Valyn says, look, the comments are ruthless. I shouldn't share frustrations on Twitter. Back to your basements, he says. So again, it's like just one of those things where you're frustrated after a tournament loss. Maybe you just turn off the social media. You don't need to reply for the day. It is what it is. But I just thought a lot of the replies, while they were kind of like, they were harsh, they were also maybe kind of fair. So I think from Valyn's perspective, it's like, to say, oh, well, haters, go back to your basements. It's like, well, maybe they're making a fair point, right? Maybe you guys do need to figure out what's going on at these international tournaments. Of course, there were some copy pastors doing the rounds as well. All this experience, all these winning international, and obviously people are talking about gold elite status on the airplane because they're going straight home. This is the way the rest of the tournament looks, because these are the two big upper bracket games coming up today. XLG Edward Gaming, Paper X versus Vitality, and probably not the upper semi-finals that we were expecting, but the final 6 teams remaining now feature FUT Esports and LEV. So 1 representative left from the Americas, 2 from Europe, 1 from the Pacific, and 2 from China, would you believe? So very much enjoyed your thoughts in the comments. Hit the like button if you enjoyed, subscribe if you're new, take care, and I'll see you next time.